So welcome to Get to Know Your Students with Tract. I'm Richard Byrne. Thanks for joining us today. We have, as I said before we started, 100 people registered from 6 continents, everywhere except for Antarctica. And if you join us from Antarctica and it didn't show up in the registration as that, please let us know, because that would be really cool if you were joining us from Antarctica for this webinar about getting to know your students with Tract. Couple of quick housekeeping things before we go too far. Number one, everything you see on my screen is being recorded. For that reason, please mute your microphone and your camera unless you want to appear in the webinar recording that goes out to the entire world. I recommend muting your microphone and your camera. If you do have a question at any point during the webinar, please put it in the chat. Use that chat function in Zoom, and myself or Ari will answer that question when it's appropriate. If you want to use your hand raise icon and ask your question over the air, that's fine too. And finally, you are going to get an email containing the recording of today's session and some other links so that you can follow up with me, follow up with Ari, follow up with the rest of the Tract team. And again, thanks to Tract for hosting this webinar or sponsoring this webinar today. Your hosts today are me, Richard Byrne. You probably know me from freetechforteachers.com. I saw a lot of familiar names in the registration list, so welcome to those who have been in webinars with me before. And if this is your first time in a webinar with me, welcome, welcome. And Ari is here. Ari is one of the co-founders of Tract. And Ari, do you want to say a quick hello to the group before I go too far?
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here. Excited for this back to school moment. I know it's a tense moment in some cases, but excited to be here with you, Richard, and chat more about how to get students excited this school year.
Great, thanks, Ari. And as I said, we'll hear quite a bit more from Ari a little bit later on. And he's here to answer any questions that I can't answer for you and anything else that pops up. But I want to start with this idea. It's the beginning of the school year. My school year starts next week. I know a lot of people are already in school, and I always come back to this idea that it's hard to teach students you don't know. Right? And, I mean that more than just learning their names. We need to know what our students are all about. Who are they as people? If we know who our students are as people, it becomes a bit easier to connect with them, a bit easier to teach them, of course, because we know exactly what we need to do. Okay? And I like to start with this idea that every student has an interest in something. If you sit down with your students, you will find out there's an interest there in something. Now, it may not have anything to do with your math class or anything to do with your US history class. And I taught US history for years. I know a lot of students had interests that had nothing to do with US history. But it was important for me to know what those were and get to know those kids. And I'll say that I'll go a step further and say every student has a passion about something. Now, they may not vocalize it. They may not want to be the one who's standing up in front of the class talking about it, like this student right here. But every student has a passion about something. They have an interest and a passion in something that, if given enough time and given a platform, would be able and willing to talk about and share with their classmates. And those classmates could be in the class or a more global classmates audience. And really, our job is to learn what those interests are, to learn what those passions are. To find out, and I told this story on Friday to a group that I was speaking to in Salt Lake City. I had a student a couple of years ago who had 2 big passions. And one of them was computer science and programming. And that was pretty obvious to me because he was in my computer science class and he'd signed up for it. But the other one, the one that I didn't know about right away, took a little while to find out about, his other passion, raising cattle and showing cattle. He was active in the 4-H club. And I got to know that student and talk to that student a lot about, and I actually learned way more about cattle and showing cattle than I had ever known in the previous 40 something years of walking the planet. And it's our job to learn what those interests are from our students. Oh, why just stop that? Close that out, sorry. And one little thing I'll mention about getting to know our students. Tangents are good. I've been saying this a lot lately when it comes to getting to know our students, and particularly in the context of social emotional learning. Like, think about some of your favorite teachers. If you have a favorite teacher from when you were in elementary school or middle school, high school, college, I would bet he or she had a pet topic, a tangent that they went off on from time to time. If you can think of one right now, put it in the chat. Let me know if you can think of one of those tangents that one of your favorite teachers always went off on. One of mine that I always think about is my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Turkington. Mrs. Turkington's pet topic, pet tangent that she would go off on quite a bit: baseball, specifically the Boston Red Sox. This was right after the Red Sox had lost the World Series to the New York Mets in 1986. And she loved Dwight Evans. And I remember that about Mrs. Turkington from almost 40 years ago now. I remember that about Mrs. Turkington. Tangents are good. Those connections we make with kids often come out of those tangents. And we need to have time in our day, time in our class, time in our whether our class is 45 minutes, an hour, or all day long. We need to have those moments, those times when we can go off on that little tangent, or we can let the kids lead us off on a tangent. Those are some of those times where we make the best connections with our students. Now, I'm going to give a lot of demos about Tract today. We're going to talk about Tract quite a bit, obviously. But some key points to think about as we go through. Number one, Tract, as the title of this webinar implied, enables us to learn about our students' interests. And we'll see how we can do that today. It enables your students to share their interests with each other, not only with you, but with each other and with a global audience as well, if they so choose and you so choose. It lets our students discover new interests. That's another great thing about it. Like, we might find this, that a student starts out with one interest, and after going through some activities in Tract, they develop this tangential interest, and they go off on a completely new path. And they discover a new interest, and perhaps that new interest leads them into a greater interest in something in your classroom or something outside your classroom. And this is one of my favorite things about Tract right here. See, I'm making it rain there with the gold coins. One of the cool things about Tract, there are other platforms out there where kids earn digital rewards, but the cool thing that I really like about Tract is that students earn these digital coins and they can cash them in for real prizes for themselves, but they can also cash them in to do good in the world, to donate to charitable causes. And I think that's a really cool aspect of Tract, that our students develop these interests, they help each other not only learn new things, but they can donate to these great charitable causes if they so choose with their digital coins that they earn. By the way, they can do all this for free, and you can do all of this for free. You just need to sign up at teach.tract.app. And that's where we're going to go right now. we're going to dive into it right now and take a look. I've talked enough about the concept. Let's dive into it. And I'll bring it up right now. If you haven't seen Tract before, I'll put the link in the chat. You can all click on that link. Let me sign this is my student Max, student Mason. This is Mason the dog. He's my student in my class right now. But over here, let's take a look at my teacher account. And actually, this is Ari's teacher account. And I made an extra class inside of Ari. Hope you don't mind. You got an extra class in your account now. But let's take a look. First of all, as a teacher, I have a classroom. And right now, I just have one student in my brand new class here, Mason. Mason the dog. He's a real dog. He's my dog. If you've been in other webinars with me before, you know he's probably made an appearance or two. And you can see that Mason's already earned 15 digital coins, 15 coins for something he's done today. But what's new in Tract for the fall? By the way, before I go any further, a little hand raise icon or a yes in the chat if you have previously looked at Tract before. Let's see who's, if we have any prior Tract members. Nope. Okay. All right. That means everyone's new to this. That's great, Ari, isn't it? I think it is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So everyone's going to see this from the startup perspective right here. One of the things that's really cool. Let's go into this explore button here. And I chose this particular movie trailer project, this Tract original project, because I think it could be a cool way to get my students to introduce themselves to each other this fall and introduce themselves to you this fall, or you introduce yourself to them. So let's take a quick look at it. So this is an epic movie trailer. And there's going to be a little video that will play in just a second here. I'm going to mute it in the background, by the way, in just a second.
Old novels and history books aren't the most exciting thing to read. That's where you come in. It's time to give these old stories a makeover and modernize them for the 21st century. It's time to turn your research into an epic movie.
So, and I've just muted it in the background so I can talk over it. But what it is a little video about how to make an epic movie trailer. And we're going to save it to our class. Let's save to class. You can see I've already put it in Mr. Burns' fall 2002 class. But Ari, what other class should I put this in? Genius Hour, grade 5?
Yeah, that's a great class. One of my favorites.
Cool. Let's put it in Genius Hour, grade 5. And we've got more people joining us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now, another cool thing that's in here. Worksheet for teachers. How to make an epic movie trailer. And we can see all the instructions here. Yeah, I'm signed. You can all see I'm signed into my Google account now to save that. All the instructions here, little worksheet, little template to make our movie. Now, you'll see that the students will earn 60 coins when they complete this, 60 digital coins when they complete this project. As the teacher right now, I am in the view only mode, so I can't do that. So we're going to jump into the student side right now. So let's go to the student side. And we're going to go in here. And let's take a look. This is Mason. He's our student. He sees Mr. Byrne, fall 2022. And we're going to see, oh, he doesn't have any paths or projects yet because I need to update this. Let's do this again. There he is. Now,
Hey there, do you want to spice up your history or language arts?
now we've got the student perspective, and here the student can go in and create. And to do this, let me turn off my camera for a second. Let's go in and create. Now, obviously, I am not following this script because I'm doing this on the fly. I'm not following the script of the movie, but you can see, hey, there's my little student. There's my little puppet. He's my student for now. Long ago, there was a cow, and that cow lived on the hand of Mr. Burns. One day, he wanted to get away, but he couldn't, because everywhere he went, Mr. Burns was right behind him. So you can see, there's my little preview. There was. And he's going to submit his response. Oh, cool. I don't know who just wrote that comment in there in the chat, but thank you. Oh, that was Patricia. Thank you. All right. So let's take a look now. There's my submission. All right. Student can make it private or can make it public. Can add a little caption and say something to the effect of, this was made very quickly during a live webinar, and submit it. Challenge completed. 60 gold coins for Mason, the dog, who is the student in this class. Now, I'm back. Got my webcam turned on again. Now, let's take a look at what Mason can do with those coins. I've mentioned already that Mason has some options here with his coins. This is what I think is really cool. Mason going to the shop. He doesn't quite have it. He only has 75 coins right now. Doesn't quite have enough coins to really get some cool stuff yet. But he's working on it. He's getting there. Right? So he can get a custom dog avatar. All right, these are things that are great for him. He wants a custom dog avatar or custom, his own custom avatar. About all he's got with his 75 coins so far. You can see the price structure here. Those of us of a certain age might remember this, might think of this kind of like those tickets we would get in the arcade as a kid, all the skee ball tickets and go take them up to the counter. But in this case here, we can take those skee ball tickets, those gold coins, and you can see some of the things you can do, like donate a meal, help children of Ukraine. You can see other ones, plant a tree, donate to kids affected by cancer, help kids in Sudan. You can see there's a lot, protect our oceans. There's a lot of good that kids can do with their coins that they earn for completing a series of challenges. Now they can also get coins for just signing in every day. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Ari, but I do believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually, all of those charitable donation options you mentioned were ideas from different students, and so I think I was pleased to learn how they were very philanthropic at such young ages and really care about some of these causes at such young ages. And I think we're reinforced by so many teachers that are trying to weave in the UN Sustainable Development Goals in some capacity. So yeah, that's a really exciting component. And like you said, just for logging in every day, there's a free daily gift. And just for also posting your work and getting awards and recognition that's provided by your teacher or by your peers, there's additional bonus coins. So we always say, you earn the most by creating the highest quality, not by going fast. And that's reinforced with the award mechanism.
Yeah, and I should point out that in my demo there with my little cow puppet, probably should not have gotten any coins for the quality of that work. I would say that work was probably not the best that my cow friend has ever done in a video. But for the purposes of our demo, he did get 60 coins there for making his somewhat epic movie trailer. Now, we jump back over here to the teacher side of things, and I'll hit the home button there and go back into my fall class. I need to refresh on Mason's coin count. There we go. Let's do a little refresh, and we'll take a look at how did I even get Mason in there so far. So one of the things we can do, we want to invite our students to join in, and I should have done this at the beginning. But I've got that little invite link, and my student can open that up wherever I want. If I want to put that in Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, Canvas, whatever LMS you might use in order to make sure I close that out. Whatever LMS you might use to give out links to your students, go ahead and do that, or even make it into a fun little QR code. By the way, QR Toon is my favorite QR code maker right now because it turns me into a cartoon in the center of the QR code. Check that out if you're looking for a QR code maker. But let's say my student has this link, and we'll see my student sign in right now. My new student is going to sign in right now. He's going to needs to create an account. And so let's make sure his cookie's turned on. There we go. And this new student is going to be my friend Max. So there's Max the dog. All of my dogs have their own Google accounts, for those of you who are wondering, as do my children. And we'll make him Max the dog. Well, see, that's not going to be his, that's his username, his screen name. He obviously didn't put his real name in there, and just remind your kids about that. And so here's Max. And we'll see that Max right now does not have any coins. And Max can also go in and complete any challenge that he finds interesting to himself. And I think this is one of the ways it's great for figuring out, what are your kids interested in? What do they want to, what do they know? What are their skills? Let's jump over here to the left-hand side. Now we've got this huge section on gaming. 268 items in the gaming category. Let's go back, and maybe Max is into sports. Got 143. Nature. 488 results in nature. Now, he can just scroll through here and hopefully come across something he likes, or maybe he's really into something like nature photography, or he wants to learn more about nature photography. Well, here's Max. And Max is in this new learning path. And we'll notice here that this is just a short one. And I love this because these are all short segments. That first one I showed you is kind of a longer video. That's on the, all right, I would say that's on the long end. That first one I showed, that 5-minute video, that's probably on the long end of things. Is that correct?
Yeah, most are kind of in the 1 to 3 minute range, but yeah, some are a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I like the chunks. My pal Rushton Hurley always says, you know, it's better to have a couple of 90-second videos than 1 3-minute video. And I agree with that, because kids will watch things in chunks and may not sit down and watch all the way through. 3 minutes seems like a lot to some kids. And so there's a little trailer for it. Now, let's take a stunning nature photograph.
These tips for nature photography are key for taking stunning photographs. By applying them, you'll easily catch people's eyes and get them to appreciate the beauty of our planet. There's a total of 5 tips. I'm going to split it apart into 3 videos. Tip number 1, fill the frame with wonder.
And so you can see it's kids making video lessons for kids in a little sequence. And we'll see, all right, here's a little challenge for the student to do now. Practice taking photos with good lighting. Now, I previously showed you that you can use the built-in camera for video. You can also use the built-in camera for still photography if you'd like, or if students want to, they can use it that way. And then once again, we'll use my little puppet cow here. And yeah, let's keep that one. Okay. So, or perhaps maybe we don't like that. Let's do another one here. I didn't like that one so much because I forgot to use some of the effects. I want to use, a nice little background of one of my tabs on my computer, or I want to use, let's say, this one here. That's my background. Wow. And now I've got a flying cow. And so that's now my image that I'm going to submit. And I'm going to say, holy cow, a flying cow. And my students, our student there has now submitted his work for 15 points. And we can keep on going through. We can see here's some other submissions that people have made public. And again, you can make them public or private. In our demo here, I made that one public, but you can choose, or you and your student together can choose whether it's best to do it privately or publicly. And you don't have to use a built-in camera. I need to point that out. We could also just upload a file that we have stored on our computer here. Maybe I'm going to include a picture here of Buck Sledge in Greenwood, Maine. A fun little spot that I ride by on my bike at least a couple times a week. And again, Max gets 15 digital coins for his submission there. And you can see he's now made those 2 submissions, practicing good photos with good lighting, filling the frame with what's important. And let's now see, Max has 30 coins up there in his account. So let's go into Max's class. And Max can see that he has another student in the class with him. He's got his friend Mason also in the class with him in there. Now, again, as a teacher, I go back into my account. I can see that I have both of my students here in my account, and I can see their point totals. There's Mason. And this is the part that I should point out is really important if you want to know what your students are interested in. If you've let them go into Tract and just pick something that they want to learn about and pick a path that they want to go down and a challenge to complete, it's important that you go in and, hey, see what did they actually do? What has he actually submitted? All right, well, he submitted this. And I'm going to give Mason some feedback. I'm going to give some feedback here and say, this is a good start. I like how you used the opening scene to set the tone of the story. The video seems to be incomplete. And so we can see there, all right, student has now gotten some feedback from the teacher. Now, further feedback, can like it or give an award here and say, hey, job well done, and give out some extra coins here if I like as well. But I'm not going to do that because it's a little bit incomplete right now. That project's a little bit incomplete. And we can see that Mason the dog really just has that one project in his account at this time. And we'll go in to see mate. We'll go in and check on Max now. In Max's class. See what Max the dog has done so far. Max the dog has that project right there. I'll say, hey. Great job with this photograph. It appears you have really paid attention to the teacher of this particular lesson. And so not only am I seeing what are my students interested in, what are the projects they're tackling, but I can give them that feedback as well. Now, what's new this year? Previously, last year, if you try, and I know we have some folks here who tried this out last year. I believe that was Patricia who mentioned that she had used that for Genius Hour time. Yeah, Patricia used that for Genius Hour time last year. Since then, new for this coming school year or this school year, there's some project guides that we can take advantage of. So let's dive in here and say social science. This is my history teacher background coming through. And so I'm going to dive in here to this one. And let's say maybe we want to do the fall of Rome or world geography. Reading maps can save your life. Interesting. Or the American Revolution. We can see all kinds of ones here. I like this one. Adulting at 14 years old. Life in the 13 colonies. Find that one interesting. Let's.
After the lead creator of Tract, we all know the United States is a diverse country.
Let's save this one to the class. Let's give that to the fall 2022 class. And we'll save that. Now, also go over here and share it. And you can see if you're a Google Classroom user, Canvas user, Schoology user, or something else, go ahead and you can share it out to one of those options as well. So we have our Canvas, Google Classroom, Schoology, other, or just, again, copy the link, put it wherever you would want your students to access it. Now, let's say that my student here let's get my student Max in here, put him back in, make sure Max has enabled his cookies. A side note or a little tip for all web apps like this. If your student is saying that they can't sign in and you know that they've been using the right username and password, make sure they have their cookies enabled. That doesn't apply just to Tract, that applies to a whole bunch of things. And Michelle just put in the, Michelle, can you make that public? Michelle just put in the link to the entire guide for that 13 colonies.
Yeah, what's nice with those guides, Richard, which we prepared about 50 so far for this school year, and we're adding new ones every single week. These are all tied to the core subjects and are all formatted in this open-ended project-based format. So you'll be able to align it very nicely towards the core standards, but still leave that fun, authentic, open-ended multimedia aspect that will allow kids to do all sorts of fun creations around these different topics, whether it's through creating different formats of videos, like the trailers you showed, or TED Talks, or different forms of multimedia in the form of songs or podcasts. So really flexible. And then within our Creator Academy, we've got those tutorials that you showed, like the movie trailer, the epic movie trailer, that kind of walk through the aspects of the public product formation, step by step, and kind of what's a little bit more scaffolding, so it's easier.
Yeah. And so if you taking a look at my screen right now, this is the project guide that Michelle and Ari just mentioned for that particular lesson that I also just opened up on the screen there for Life in the 13 adulting at 14 years old, Life in the 13 colonies. And you can see right there, we've got it saved to the class, and let's go in here. And you can see here it is as the teacher with the project instructions, ordinary description, film a skit, turn your 13 colony world into a skit, and create a schedule for your life as a kid in the 13 colonies. Right? And we can see all these project resources that are in here, including some video editing resources there. If you're not familiar with what video editors to use, there you are. You have some resources available to you and your students right inside this little project guide. Now, this is a skit. And so that's obviously going to perhaps take more than one student to do. And this is a great option for students to work together and collaborate to make their final submission. And let's bring my student back up here. There's Max right there. He's signed back in. And we can see both of his submissions. And let's go back here. And Max can, again, explore, like a project. He can create things in here. One of the things that I want to point out that I dabbled with myself last fall, it's the idea of I want to find stuff that is tangentially related to my content area, but is, perhaps not exactly in my content area, might not exactly be in my curriculum. I've got Life in the 13 colonies. In my as a high school US history teacher, that daily life wasn't something that wasn't typically in my curriculum. That was something that was done usually at middle school or elementary school. By the time it got to me, we're dealing with the bigger political issues. I'm not making a statement about the quality of that one way or the other than to say that's how the curriculum was written. And so something like Life in the 13 colonies is great because for my high school students, they can revisit that thing that they talked about perhaps in elementary school or middle school and bring it up to life, or something else, like perhaps they want to learn about computer programming or programming. And so, hey, this is interesting. First computer mouse in the world, or how to use new computer skills to use computer science to learn a new skill. And
Do you want to learn faster or make better decisions?
And this one here, again, save it to my class for everyone to access. Then we can see this one here has about 8
Let's talk about
different parts.
in computer science.
And the students can go through and watch each one of these segments and then complete the challenge activities at the end. Now before we go any further here, I want to talk a little bit more about the classroom setup piece, because I did that really quickly. And there's something that you need to know when you set up your classroom. You sign up as a teacher and you create when you sign up as a teacher for the first time, Tract wants to make sure that you're actually a teacher and that your students are actually students. And I find that this afternoon, when I was trying to set up yet another demo class, I was trying to set a third demo class for myself, and I couldn't do that because I couldn't claim to be working in a make-believe school. So Ari, can you talk a little bit more about that and how you prevent me from creating a make-believe school and make-believe students?
Yeah, we have a pretty simple and straightforward verification process whenever we have any new educators from new schools, where we're validating that you are an educator at that school and you have the correct email domain associated. So that does create a little bit of friction up front, but also ensures that, you know, nobody who's not supposed to gets access inside the community. And then within your kind of educator settings, you can, you know, set the appropriate visibility controls for your student. It's always great, I think, for students to have the largest authentic audience, which is why we safeguard entrance into the community in that format. We always recommend that that be the settings that you know, educators set. Having said that, if they want to reduce it to just their class or school, or if students want to reduce it even further and just be private with kind of just their teacher as well, that's totally fine and configurable.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because I think that is a really important component of this. Whenever we're talking about students who are, you know, perhaps nervous about sharing their work, you know, not only from a privacy standpoint, but just comfort level overall for our students. You know, we have this, sometimes we have this feeling that, hey, every kid loves to be on TikTok, or every kid loves to do Snapchat, and that's not always true. And some kids will want to just keep that project private to themselves and you. They might want to just share it between the two of you, or perhaps they just want to share it within their class and they don't want to share it to a bigger audience. Now, of course, I always feel like if kids can get to the point where they're comfortable sharing with a bigger audience, that's even better. But this is a great way to get them started, get them comfortable with it before you say, hey, would you mind sharing this with the bigger audience? And of course, with our younger students, we may have some parents who are concerned, hey, we don't want this shared to the whole world. Can we just keep it private? Can we just keep it in the class? And you say, yeah, of course, you can do that as well. Yeah, and to Ari's point about validating that you are actually at a school or at a, and you are actually a teacher, when you go to sign up, it will ask you what school you work in, and it pulls from a huge database. So you can't just make up your own school and say that you're a teacher. So that's one way to keep it. That they keep it very safe for students. Now, a teacher who has signed up, you might want to create a new class, and we'll call this one Mr. Burns' other fall class for 2022. And again, if I want to invite a student to join it, we'll use the same process we saw with Max earlier as the student. And we can see over there on the left-hand side, we have some moderation options, but obviously we don't have any projects in there right now. Let's take a look at this one and moderate. And I don't have any comments, so I need to moderate right now. But I can see all the things that have been submitted by students. So if we do come across a student who has submitted something, and let's take a look at this one here from Mason. We can see it there, and we can view it, and we can see there it is in the context of the project. But we can also go in and say, this does not satisfy the challenge prompt, or appears to be plagiarized, or it's offensive or inappropriate or other. Let's just say this seems to be incomplete.
And we obviously let yours slide through for the demo purposes,
Yes.
but our team actually does the first layer of the moderation. So there's no real expectation for anybody to do anything other than kind of review it. And if you feel like your students needed to have done better quality work, you can obviously request revisions, or if you want to provide comments or feedback or recognize them with awards, you can do that. But you still have kind of under the hood view of all the activity students are doing, as well as the moderation history.
And so I'm going to let, since it's not my class, so that was my demo class, Ari has other demo classes in here, and Michelle just said that he is going to, as soon as I allow him to screen share, can share as well. There we go. Thank you. All right. And Ari, can you, there you go. Be able to see that now. Perfect. Ari, you are muted.
All right, let's
There you
take
go.
two.
Perfect.
So as Richard mentioned, there are a bunch of new resources this school year, which you can find in this teaching resources section behind this menu. And in the teaching resources section, you'll find a whole library of project guides. These are, turnkey, easy to implement, standards align kind of lesson plans that walk through the entire process for any of these different topics, ranging the core subject areas. So you can explore these. You can also watch, video tutorials on how everything works. These are really short, 1 to 2 minutes each, with an overview of kind of like how everything works at a basic level, and then more advanced topics like, inviting students and the privacy measures as well. If I click into one of these, just as an example, this is a really fun one. Figurative language is not something when I was in school I remember fondly, but this spin on it is really around how can you use figurative language to convince people to give you more dessert, especially your parents. And in this case, one of our awesome creators, Layla, kind of in collaboration with Gibran, one of our lead creators, have put together a series of videos, and then there's a bunch of different kind of creative projects, whether you're writing a poem or illustrating a poem or performing a skit. And then for the more advanced use cases, like what Layla has done here, is you can also, teach about the topic. So teaching is the highest form of understanding. And a lot of the students starting out, are primarily sharing at a local level, so within their class. But as we see incredible student work from all over our community, we try to elevate it by working with them to produce these higher quality lessons that are a bit more supported and scaffolded, so that they can be used as instructional material. And so that's where you see the Tract originals, which are highly supported with kids all around the world. But this essence of kids teaching kids is really important, because there's nobody more important to kids than their peers or kids slightly older than them. And they love to teach, share their passions. And if we can just channel it towards something educational, it's a lot more productive than where they might go outside of school, which could be unboxings. So you can see the Tract originals here, which are kind of what we've curated as the best of the best. These are things we've worked with the community to produce and kind of had a greater emphasis on, aligning to content standards. And then you can also explore the community creations that have been shared. These are across, all sorts of ages, all sorts of different geographies. We've curated some top picks, and you can also just view kind of by newest. A lot of students will kind of maintain their work at a more local level. So you're not going to see the totality of everything that's here, but you'll get a good sense of all the different things that kids are creating, which is fun.
Great.
You also, yeah, go ahead.
We have about 10 minutes left, and so I want to make sure that we've talked about the idea of kids creating, and I gave the very short demo there with my hand puppet, obviously, responding to a path and responding to in video form and also in picture upload form. but we should point out that students also have the option to use that create function and actually create a learning path. And I think that's one of the pieces that we want to make sure that everyone knows. It's not just students consuming and responding, but they can actually be the person who kicks things off.
Yeah, we've had a lot of different teachers start with just general driving questions or prompts, and then students have kind of gone in different directions around, researching and teaching about those different topics. So that totally works. The kind of like watch and respond use case that you went through tends to be simpler and more straightforward to execute and is a lot more structured and scaffolded. But especially the kids that really thrive and are starting to want more or have very defined passions and interests, or have the self-directed skills to research themselves, they naturally gravitate towards wanting to actually, teach about the topics and kind of go in a more in-depth layer and actually show everybody else how to do it as well. So that's kind of a natural progression we see, where kids start with kind of watch and respond and create kind of more structured projects that have been scaffolded. And then eventually they're like coming up with completely their own ideas, coming up with their own questions, and teaching topics that, are net new to the, community.
Right. And those submissions that the students make, again, are moderated. So it's not like a free for all. Like your sixth grader isn't going to sign in one day and all of a sudden see something that's completely out of left field.
Yeah, that's right.
Things are moderated just as well.
Yeah, every single thing that's posted is moderated, so it's reviewed and approved before it's posted, which on the downside, like we're like, hey, this isn't age appropriate or this isn't topically like relevant, and so that's kind of a bummer. But at the same time, we need to maintain a certain efficacy with the quality of content that's there. So
yeah. And to kind of wrap things up here, I want to just cover one question that's come up, not right now in the webinar, but has come up in emails to me in the past. And that's about, where does this fit in with let's say a curriculum that is very, very structured, or is very, very much pushed by, I need to make sure that my students are prepared for standardized test X that my state gives. Do I have time for this? Or how do you respond to that kind of question? Like, hey, where does this fit in? Or how do I have time for this if my school is so focused on, making sure that we get our kids ready for standardized test X, Y, or Z?
yeah, I mean, I think if you've got standards that are more traditional, so NGSS, Common Core type based derivatives, then I'd say our Tract originals are perfect for that because they are precisely standards aligned. And I think the research around project-based learning and peer instruction are pretty strong when they kind of show and reinforce that standardized testing results are actually better because kids understand the topics better, kids retain the information better, and I think most importantly, kids are engaged and interested in the topics that otherwise they feel maybe disconnected with. We've had a couple stories of really troubled kids with difficult home lives who are quite frankly just experiencing trauma. So it becomes very difficult to even get them engaged in school at all. And with those contexts, we've had amazing feedback from some of our teachers and principals of hey, this student has come alive and now all of a sudden is present. And for them, that was kind of the first order problem or challenge that was most important before you could even talk about, is this student going to be ready for standardized tests? It's is this student ready to be in the classroom? So that would be kind of my answer, both this will, make the standardized test results better, and this will help with some of the social emotional pain of the last 2 years plus.
Yeah, and I would say that it's a great tool for just getting to that point with your student where you can reach them. You can break down that barrier. You can get to that point okay, now they're engaged in school. Now they're okay, I've made that breakthrough. You've made that breakthrough with them, and now you can really dive in. So someone recently said to me, I was having an email conversation with a friend of mine about this, a similar topic, And she said, you can't make people eat an apple if you don't first give them the caramel to go around the apple. And I was like, well, that's actually a pretty good, that's a pretty good description of it sometimes. Like, all right, well, yeah, we got to get them to eat the apple, but sometimes we got to put some sugar around it first. And I would say that Tract is much more than just putting sugar around it, but it's a great way to kind of think about it. Like, hey, this is something that's fun for kids, but it also gets them to really develop some skills, get the skill set. And before we end today, I want to point out two links. I want to share two more links in the chat here for folks who either came in later or just want to get a little recap. It's the Epic movie trailer. I am so excited about this because I really do think it's going to be a wonderful way to get to know who your students are, get them to share who they are with you and with their classmates, and for you to do the same for them. Create a little epic movie trailer about you and your class so they get to know you as well. All right. And once again, if you want to sign up for Tract, if you haven't done so yet while we were on this live webinar today, go to tract.app and you go to teach.tract.app to get directly to the teacher sign up side of things. It's free. If you're asked for a code, put in Byrne, B-Y-R-N-E, my last name. And if you have questions about Tract, you can email me. You can email Ari or anyone else on Ari's team. You may have heard Michelle's name mentioned. She's wonderful as well. Michelle will answer your emails as well, and many other people on their team. Ari, any closing thoughts or statements you'd like to make for us today?
No, just, I'd encourage everybody to give it a try. We're really excited to support every single teacher. I think the combination of having real world relevant projects that are tied to student interests and having multimedia creation, which we know how much kids love to create videos and create multimedia, I think that kind of can apply and supercharge any sort of curriculum topic or project. And so, we want to help teachers do that in a really productive, easy, high quality way. And we're a team that is personally available. If you want to meet with us, if you want us to do an orientation with your staff, if you want us to introduce the product to your classroom, super flexible. So we're just excited to be able to work with everyone and support kids in their creation and endeavors.
Great. Well, thank you, Ari, and thank you, Michelle, who's been helping out in the background as well for setting this up and for being here today. And a big thank you to everyone who was here live and gave up an hour of your life to learn about Tract today, and more importantly, to learn about how it can help you get to know your students and your students to learn as well. Thanks, everyone. If you would like a copy of the recording, don't worry, it's going to be emailed to you later this evening. I've got your email address from the registration. You're going to get a copy of today's recording, and the other links that I shared during the webinar today will also be in that email. So thanks, everyone. It was a pleasure, and I hope to see you all online sometime soon, and I hope you have a great new school year. Thanks, everybody. Bye.